Hi guys, today I'm going to be listing past members of the Quarrymen, and also I'm going to be talking a little bit about each one. I want to apologise first of all if you hear any background noise during this video. It is very hot today. It's currently nearly 30 degrees in the UK, which I am just not used to. I'm just so hot, so I have to keep the window open. I was tempted to even turn the fan on, but it was just far too noisy, so hoping to get through this fairly quickly. The Quarrymen are a British skiffle and rock and roll group formed by John Lennon in Liverpool in 1956, which evolved into the Beatles in 1960. The initial lineup consisted of John Lennon and Eric Griffiths on guitars, Pete Shotton on washboard, and Bill Smith on T-chest bass. The parts members were Pete Shotton. Pete Shotton was a close childhood friend of John Lennon's. They attended Dovedale Infant School and Quarrybank Grammar School together and were frequently in trouble. Pete played the washboard but left the group when he told John he didn't enjoy playing, prompting Lennon to smash the washboard over his head at a party. However, they remained good friends. Eric Griffiths. Lennon's mum taught Eric and John to play banjo chords on the guitar. The two would practice at Eric's house, skipping school. Eric was invited to join the group because he had a new guitar. When George Harrison joined the band, they suggested that Eric buy an electric bass and an amplifier, but he could not afford this. Eric was then not invited to McCartney's house for the next rehearsal, and was later told by drummer Colin Hanton that he was no longer in the band. Bill Smith. Bill Smith attended Quarrybank High School with John Lennon. He played on T-chest bass, which he got by stealing from the woodwork shop at their school. Bill remembered painting it, and John painting cartoons on the side, but Bill was replaced quickly, and his T-chest bass was then stolen by John Lennon and Pete Shotton. The two managed to steal it by leaving school early with a forged letter claiming they were going to a funeral. Once Bill found out, he stole it back by sneaking into Shotton's house. Bill then hid the bass in his loft before his father threw it out many years later. Bill last saw John Lennon on a bus in January 1962. Len Garry. Len Garry was also on T-chest bass for the Quarrymen. He attended Liverpool Institute High School for Boys, where he met Ivan Vaughan. 2 years later, he met John Lennon when Ivan invited him to Walton. The Quarrymen's original T-chest bassist, Bill Smith, stopped showing up for practices, so Len stepped in as the new T-chest bass player. Len performed with the group at two of their most historical performances, on Rosebery Street on the 22nd of June 1957 and at their first performance at the Cavern Club. Len remained for a few months until he had to back out after falling ill with tubercular meningitis. Nigel Walley. Nigel Walley was another on T-chest bass, but he lost his T-chest when he left it at a bus stop after being threatened by two local boys. He then decided to become the group's manager at Lennon's request. While playing golf, Nigel asked the father of Alan Sitner if he could get his son to book the Quarrymen at the Cavern Club, which was one of 3 jazz clubs he managed. After passing on the information to his son, Sitner suggested that the group should play at the golf club first to see their talent. After playing at the golf club, Nigel was called a week later and offered the group an interlude spot on the 7th of August 1957, playing skiffle between the performances of 3 jazz groups at the Cavern Club. Nigel stopped managing the group after his family moved. On the evening of the 15th of July 1958, Nigel went to visit Lennon at his aunt's house, finding Julia Lennon and Lennon's aunt talking by the front gate of Menlove Avenue. Lennon was not there, so Nigel then walked down the road with Julia before leaving her to walk up Vale Road. 5 seconds later, Nigel heard a loud thud and turned to see her body flying through the air, which landed about 100 feet from where she had been hit. This was the moment Lennon's mother was killed after being hit by a car. Lennon refused to talk to Nigel for months afterwards, which left him with the feeling that Lennon held him responsible, although Lennon and Nigel remained in contact with each other until Lennon's death. Colin Hanton. Colin Hanton played the drums for the Quarrymen. He was asked to join the group mostly because he had recently purchased a new drum kit. Hanton played drums on the Quarrymen's first recordings, a cover of the Crickets' That'll Be the Day, and an original song by Paul McCartney and George Harrison, In Spite of All the Danger. He left the Quarrymen after an argument with the rest of the band following a bad performance on the 1st of January 1959. He said, "We had drunk a few beers during the interval and an argument started on the way home on the bus. I got off to catch another bus to take me home to Alton, and somehow or other, that was that. They never contacted me again to ask me to play. I saw John a few times and he told me that they had got a drummer called Pete, which must have been Pete Best. After that, I lost touch completely."
Rod Davis.
Rod was attending Quarrybank High School when Eric Griffiths invited him to join the Quarrymen in early 1956, just after he bought a banjo. His time in the group was short, and he left when he felt that the group was moving away from skiffle and towards rock. Ivan Vaughan. Ivan Vaughan, at the age of 4, became friends with a 6-year-old John Lennon. Lennon led a crew of friends with Ivan, Nigel Walley and Pete Shotton, who hung out around Liverpool. Ivan met McCartney at Liverpool Institute High School for Boys in 1953. Ivan attended Liverpool Institute because his mother sought to separate him from Lennon, who was attending Quarrybank High School. He played tea-chess bass part-time in the Quarrymen and was responsible for introducing Lennon to McCartney. John Duff Lowe. John Duff Lowe played piano for the Quarrymen. He had known Paul McCartney since 1953 and was invited to play piano with the Quarrymen by McCartney in February 1958. He was in the Quarrymen for 2 years. Ken Brown. Ken Brown was a guitarist for the Quarrymen. He was also a member of the Les Stewart Quartet with Les Stewart, George Harrison and Jeff Skinner. Mona Best, Pete Best's mother, opened the Casbah Coffee Club, and Ken arranged for the quartet to be its resident band. When Ken missed rehearsals to help decorate the Casbah, Stewart refused to play. Ken and George then recruited John Lennon and Paul McCartney at short notice to play instead and used the name of the Quarrymen. They played a series of 7 Saturday night engagements in the Casbah. Ken injured his leg and it was agreed that he could not play, so he rested upstairs while Lennon, Harrison and McCartney played the gig. But Mona Best still divided the group's earnings equally between the 4 of them. This resulted in an argument, resulting in Ken losing a place in the group. Ken then formed the Blackjacks, with Pete Best on drums and Chas Newby. The group played at the Casbah until Pete Best was invited to join the Beatles just before their first 1960 trip to Hamburg in Germany. Chas Newby. When the Beatles returned from Germany for the first time, they were in need of a bass guitarist, and Pete Best suggested Chas Newby, who had been with the Blackjacks. Chas appeared with the Beatles for 4 engagements in December 1960. John Lennon asked him to go to Germany for the Beatles' second trip, but Chas chose to return to university. Lennon and Harrison didn't want to play bass guitar, so McCartney, who previously played guitar and piano, reluctantly became the band's bass player. Pete Best. Having no permanent drummer, McCartney looked for someone to fill the Hamburg position. Best had been seen playing in the Casbah with his own group, the Blackjacks, and McCartney persuaded Best to go to Hamburg with the band. He was later fired and replaced by Ringo Starr. Stuart Sutcliffe. Stuart met John Lennon at the Liverpool College of Art and the two became really good friends. Lennon and McCartney persuaded him to buy a bass guitar and to perform with them in Hamburg, but Stuart later decided to leave the group to continue painting. Paul McCartney. At the age of 15, on the 6th of July 1957, McCartney met John Lennon and his band, the Quarrymen, at the St. Peter's Church Hall Fete in Walton. Lennon was impressed with Paul and asked him to join his group as a rhythm guitarist. George Harrison. In March 1958, McCartney introduced Lennon to Harrison in hope that Harrison would be allowed to join the Quarrymen, but at first Lennon felt that Harrison was too young to join the band. McCartney arranged a second meeting on the upper deck of a Liverpool bus, during which Harrison impressed Lennon by performing the lead guitar part for the instrumental Raunchy. He was later accepted as a member. Since the breakup of the Beatles, the Quarrymen have reunited and performed a number of times. Thank you very much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from me, and I will see you in my next video. Bye! I was desperate for that. I cannot handle this weather. I'm just a typical Brit, complain of the bad weather all through the year, and as soon as we get sun, I've had enough. I have had enough.